All right, welcome everybody to this Friday's Force Friday event. Thanks for coming. We have a really exciting subject today for you. We're going to talk about what is the fastest way to learn how to draw, right? Before we get into it, I want to say hello to our other Force instructors. Hey, Diego, Swenley, and Rotunje.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
Hey everyone.
How are you? Yeah.
How are you guys doing?
Yeah, fine.
Doing fine. This is Friday, so we get to Friday and like every week.
Exactly. Yeah, it somehow shrinks the week, doesn't it? I'm like, I swear we were just here like yesterday. Kind of funny. So today we're going to talk about what's the fastest way to learn how to draw, right? This is something that comes up very often, and I would say especially in today's day and age, even more so. Everything is about how do we get from A to B as quick as possible. Me and the other Force instructors, we're going to divide up our knowledge around this subject, so you'll get to hear from each one of us again. I'm going to start today's, so let's just get into it so I make sure I don't eat up into any of their time. Let's do it. So the first thing I want to bring to attention is, I don't know if this is per se per artist, but at least as an instructor, I'm definitely aware of wearing different hats. I think about the idea of if I can get my mind into a place of doing different jobs and approaching drawing in different ways, it helps me expand my thinking. It helps me expand my approach. And for me, that really, really helps. So the hat we're going to wear today is the hat of the scientist, right? So, why a scientist? It seems like it's so far detached from being an artist. But there's a lot of power in saying that I'm a scientist. So first of all, the first thing that pops in my mind when I think about a scientist is experimentation, right? I'm trying to get to an end goal, right? But to get there is going to take a lot of experimenting, and things, as this photograph shows, things may even blow up in my face, and that's totally fine. And being okay with that. So there's this mindset of being okay with the idea of experimentation, that there's going to be a lot of failure to get to a solution. I think that's really, really, really powerful. And you're going to hear from the other guys a little bit more about the psychology behind all of this as well. But the idea of experimenting. And in a sense, as we get more sophisticated with this, you'll learn also like, okay, in that experimenting, there's things called a control, right? So it's like, here's the thing I know. So I have something to always go back to, and I'm going to experiment with other things relative to that. That's another way of thinking about yourself as a scientist, right? I want to come in with different ideas and keep using at least my one control. As you experiment, you also end up figuring out that there's certain things that are correct. So they become sort of piled on new controls, and then you learn, okay, I'm going to experiment on these other things. And basically you're trying to move your way through this until you get to the right answer. So my visual for this is like taking a pyramid and putting on its side, right? We can turn this upside down or vertical or whatever, but I kind of like looking at it from left to right in this case. It's funny when I look at this, as some of you know, I've been in games and video games for like 25 years. In fact, I just left only a few years ago. When I see this, I think of two things. I think about the process of a team making a game. So, in games, you want to start like really broad, right? And what that means is, you want a lot of people over here that deal with like concept and game designers and the writer, creative director, right? All the guys who do the job at this most abstract level. And you kind of go through these gateways, right? Like this. And this leads you to the solution. Now, ironically, I'd have to say manpower wise, somewhere in here, this starts to actually go like this and get bigger to get you to the end, right? Because all of a sudden you need more and more people to actually like create the product. And not to go into production and everything too heavy here, but this of course ends up costing a lot more money because more people come on. So you want to make sure you solve these problems over here before you go too far down this sideways pyramid and expenses rise. And this is what you'll see in the news, right? It's like, oh, this company had to lay off X amount of employees because, you know, some problem all the way down here wasn't solved, and we had this huge team, and now we have to go back to the beginning. So all these people over here and over here, they got to get laid off, right? So, you know, it's like having a really good production or producer team also to help like guide your way to the end. So how does this relate to drawing, right? So in drawing, let me get rid of all this. We still have these gateways, but you want to start here and you want to keep experimenting. So each one of these moments, and this is what our main topic is today, by the way, is you want to learn through iteration. And this is actually, I have to say, becoming a hotter and hotter topic. I've even seen this coming up now more and more on YouTube from other artists. But iteration, I believe, is definitely the answer. You want to be able to iterate. So, you know, you have your reference, right? And you want to understand that if I draw over here and I learn a fast way to iterate, right? And that's the thing, you want to fail fast and fail often. You want to do that at the very beginning, right? Right at the start. That's why force is one of the reasons I think force is so great as a drawing approach, a drawing method, is you get to draw the body and the whole of the body very quickly, okay? So you're going through all that iteration, and as you start to solve the answers, right, then one of these drawings might be the one that you think is the best in its holistic approach, and it moves forward, right? And as it moves forward, you might then find, okay, now I can like start iterating around the ideas of how I moved it forward. You might realize, oh, you know what, it wasn't the best version. Maybe this wasn't the best shot I have. You go back and you pick another one and move it forward. And then time, this equals time. Over time, you keep adding more and more information, right? And that ends up slowly getting you, you know, to the end, right? To like, here's my drawing. So, and this might be a drawing that's an hour long, okay? Now, it kind of brings me, I wasn't going to even talk about this today, but this makes me think about many times when people see force drawings, they think, oh, all these drawings are about are these like unfinished drawings with things missing. That's because most of the time, myself and the other force instructors are really trying to just teach step number one, right? It's the most important step, as you can see now. And it's because you don't want to move forward. You don't want to move past step number one to step number two and step number three until you really understand one, right? So one is the essential one, and one is again about about understanding the full picture, okay? So hopefully this makes sense. You know, you want to work from big to medium to small, which is also a way of describing what I'm talking about here. You know, you want to take your time at the front end. You don't want to move through another gate of like detailed information in your drawing until you've really solved the bigger ideas first, right? And progressively make your way down over time across the different levels of information, okay? So hopefully that makes sense. I have a couple of other things I want to share with you. So, you know, again, in corporate America, this idea of fail early and fail fast now, it's almost cliche, but it's a great cliche. I got to say, I agree with it 100%, right? Fail early, fail fast, right? Let things explode in your face. It's totally fine, right? It's like, ah, I drew it, right? I made a mistake. That's fine. I'm going to do it again. Boom, it explodes in your face again. Boom, it explodes in your face again. Ah, I finally got the answer, right? So keep in mind, allow the failures to happen. You know, we come in and we judge ourselves so strongly, and that derails learning, right? That really derails learning. I want you to really accept the idea of fail early, fail fast, look at big picture thinking, right? Big ideas before you get to medium, before you get to small, okay? I have a couple of quotes I want to share with you that come from my past. I was going to bring in Yoda, but everyone knows Yoda at this point. I definitely agree with the idea of like, you know, try not, do or do not, there is no try. And also Luke saying like, I can't believe it. And Yoda saying that's why you fail. Those are huge, right? You got to believe in yourself, of course. That goes right into this conversation too. Michael Jordan, of course, has got this great quote here. I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. This one's huge. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed, right? Wow, think about that. Think about the pressure of you taking the game-winning shot and missing, right? You've got to take the shot at doing it, right? I've failed over and over and over in my life again and again, right? And that is why I succeed, right? So keep in mind, if someone like Michael Jordan can put out a statement like this, then you can keep failing, right? Because failure is what's going to allow you to succeed. I'm actually, ironically, not a huge sports fan, and I don't watch hockey, but this came from my childhood. Wayne Gretzky, for those of you who don't know who he is, he was an extremely skilled Michael Jordan of hockey. And this quote really stuck with me from my childhood. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? So if you don't take the shot, then already you've lost and you've missed, right? So keep in mind, you've got to take the shot, right? You have to be able to iterate and make mistakes in order to grow and learn. It's not going to come out under your stress of trying to get it right the first time. You just got to keep working at it and working at it and working at it, okay? All right, and last but not least, I wanted to give you this other metaphor that I'm going to draw for you here live. So this other thing that I think about is we have this lake, right? There's like evergreen trees and stuff back here. And there's this pier, okay? We've got our drop shadow here. There's this pier. And there's these two kids, right? And their goal is they want to learn how to jump off of this pier and do a front flip, right? A front somersault, right? So kid number one is here, and he really wants to get into the water. Okay. I'm gonna draw a little stick figure here. All right. And then we have kid number two. All right. Well, so what happens? They want to get in there. They want to jump into the lake. I know my lake is very crude. Here, let's just try to close it up a little bit. Maybe there's a little bit of beachfront here. All right, and the pier is kind of half buried in the sand. All right. Maybe there's mountains back here. So we have these two kids. So kid number one is like, I'm going to go in and I want to create this somersault, right? So he basically goes in and he's running and he jumps off, right? He makes a splash here out in the water and he ends up, coming out of the water. And what happens? He doesn't do it, right? He doesn't succeed in the flip. He runs his way out and he gets back over here and he wants to go do it again. Well, the other kid at that point, this kid is now here. Okay, so he's moved from here to here. And the first kid, he starts running, he jumps, tries to do the front somersault, doesn't do it again, swims his way out, gets over here. And our other kid, right, is now maybe here. So hopefully you're starting to get the point. This kid now runs and jumps, comes back out, right, gets ready to do it again. Second kid, kiddo two, is like maybe over here. And you can see what's happening with fail early, fail fast is the kid who likes running and doing this has now had 3, 5, 7 shots on goal or for the hoop, right, in basketball, or Wayne Gretzky style, right? He's taken lots of shots to try and make this happen. That means he's had the experience, right? The physical experience of trying to do this. Well, guess what? By the time, the second kid gets here to make the jump into the lake to do the somersault, our first kid runs maybe by, his 10th attempt, tries a somersault, jumps in the water and does it, right? He pulls it off. Kid number two, it's his first time getting to the edge of the pier, right? And he jumps in and guess what? He doesn't succeed because it's his first time doing it, physically going through the act of trying to jump into the water and do the somersault, right? So I love using this metaphor with the students I mentor because I want you to be aware you can, but it's going to take you longer to learn by being kid number two. Kid number two scared, You know, he's scared. He doesn't want to mess up. He's worried about jumping in the water. He doesn't know if he can pull this off. You want to be courageous, excited, playful, right? All the things that it takes emotionally and psychologically to allow you to experiment, to be the scientist and fail a lot and fail early. You don't want to get yourself down the wrong pipe deep into the drawing and realize things are wrong. Not like anything bad's going to happen. It really just you end up wasting a lot of time, right? So hopefully this all makes sense. You know, iteration, I believe, is definitely the key to learning how to draw fast, and you having the ability to be curious, like I said, joyful and excited, and have a mindset that's going to get you into the space of working like this. Okay. All right. I'm going to pass this now over to Swenley, I believe, right? Let me
Yes.
stop my share. Okay. It's all yours.
All right. Thank you, Mike. That was great. Some great insights. And
Thanks.
I'm actually going to like continue on that with an example of my everyday work. I'm a character designer, and I would say in terms of the iterative process and internal dialogue, one of the things that this approach helped the most with is to take the pressure off, man. I mean, it's enough pressure if you're drawing and studying all by yourself to, you know, to have like this idea, this feeling that you have to get everything right from the first shot. And especially in working in a production, like maybe you have a client that's waiting for work to be done, uh, that only adds up to the pressure, you know, because what happens if you don't get it right? The client might think that maybe you're incompetent, that they hired the wrong guy, you know. So internally, all these questions start going through your mind. And in this example here, so I did this character. This was the final. The client approved it. And the next step was to do an expression sheet. So showing this, the various expressions of this character, or I should say, showing the character's personality through various expressions. So in this case, this is my reference. And one of the things, one of the challenges is to keep all the expression drawings on model. You know, for any of you who have tried that, it can be quite challenging, especially if you're just starting out. So the first thing I did was I just started doing some sketches. Now, there are two problems that I had to solve here. First of all, I had to make sure that the character's personality became evident through all the expressions. And number two, the character had to stay on model. You know, it couldn't look like all of a sudden I was drawing a complete different character. So if I had approached this with the mindset of I have to get everything right in the first shot, man, that would have been so hard to do, and I would have been demotivated at this first stage because the drawings are decent, but they don't look like the character yet, you know. So here's a point where I could have thought, man, I suck at this, and why are other artists better than me? It seems that for them it's so easy. Why can't I do it? You know, am I ever going to get this right? You know, maybe I should quit art. It could go very far. You know, you even start questioning whether you are qualified to be an artist, whether you're ever going to succeed, you know, to attain the skill level that you're after. But in being trained by Mike in approaching this from an iterative point of view, I said, okay, the first thing I'm going to focus on is just exploring the expressions. At this stage, all I want to do is get some ideas down for the expressions. It doesn't have to be perfect. I can do that later on, you know. So I did these quick sketches, exploring some expressions. Then I did some more sketches.
So just to jump in, Swanley, to your point, you know, what Swenley's doing here is he's set up what his experiment is, right?
Mhm.
In this point,
Yeah,
you know what your goal is. I'm going to focus on expression, right?
yeah,
And,
yeah, indeed.
and I want to iterate too. Again, I think what you said that's super powerful is if you know the drawing you're working on does not have to be the perfect one, you're there to sit and learn and just work, right? That takes a ton of that pressure off, that stress off, right? It's like, I'm going to do a bunch of these and I know I'm going to get better over time by doing these, right? That's huge. I just want to repeat that, what you said, because I think that's massive, you know?
Yeah, yeah, it is. And it actually makes you more effective, you know, because instead of sitting there and worrying about the perfection of one drawings, you pumped out tons of ideas. You know, it's about the idea. I mean, at a certain point, when you have gone through enough training, you know that you can polish a drawing on a technical level. You know, that's not a question anymore. You don't have a doubt about that, and then your focus shifts on the idea. You know, what am I trying to say with the drawing?
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, and in this case, it's really about this character. I want to show this character's personality through the drawing. So that's my focus number one. And of course, I'm looking at. I have the reference here. I'm looking at the shapes, like the hair has a very characteristic shape, and the scarf. So I'm getting those in there, but that's not my focus. You know, it's not my focus to make it uh, perfect yet. Here, I just want to explore some ideas. So then I did some more sketches, and then I reached the stage. I said, okay, I'm going to pick the ideas that I think um, best represent this character's personality. And now that I have the expressions, I'm going to actually start refining these. You know, this is iteration in the sense it's not that I'm drawing completely from scratch, but I'm adding a layer on top and doing a second pass. You know, so that's what I did. And if I click the layers on and off, you can see that I started to like mold the ideas that I had underneath to match the character closer. You know, and even this stage, I didn't do it in one shot. Like I erased, I redrew, you know, and it all of this time I was super relaxed because I knew I don't have to get it right in one try. I can redraw things 100 times if necessary, you know, and each time I can compare it to the reference, the original design, and if something's off, all I have to do is make a game plan. Okay, I see it doesn't match yet. Why? Why is that? Why do I need to change, or what do I need to change? You know, and I can give it another shot and another shot until I get it right. And instead of stressful, it's actually fun. So once I reach this stage, I'm like, okay, I'm pretty I'm pretty happy with the results. It's looking like the character. So then I did a cleanup pass. You know, I went over it with some ink-like brush, and as you can see, it's as I click the layers on and off, it's pretty close. I did some minor changes here and there because you still at even at this inking stage, you still need to keep drawing with force. Otherwise, you lose all the energy of the character underneath. You know, and I'm still looking for things to improve. But because I've done so many iterations, the changes are quite minor at this stage. So once I did this, I was satisfied with it. The character is on model, the expressions show her personality. Then I went to the colors. You know, so I'm sure like you've seen this kind of work maybe from artists posting from maybe production work they did on a Pixar or a Disney movie, and you look at this and say, wow, how can this artist draw the character on model so perfectly, you know? But what you often don't see is the amount of work that went into it. You know, this is not easy, you know, in the sense that there are too many problems to solve oftentimes to want to do that in one shot. You know, I mean, if you can pull it off, it's awesome, but just know that you don't have to. You don't have to. You can tackle the problems one by one, and with each step, it will bring you closer to your final goal, like Mike illustrated with the kids at the pier.
Right.
Yeah, so that was my part, just showing the process that Mike illustrated in a very practical, like everyday work, and as I work in production.
Yeah, it's, I would just add, going back to the beginning, this was the experiment here is around expression, right? The experiment could have been, I need to figure out who this character is, right? And as you
Yes.
and I did in the Medusa character design video on the site, we talked about like starting actually with like, who is this character? How would they act? Right. So then that's a very specific experiment. It's like, okay, in this experiment, I want to figure out who this person is and how they would act. So you go through all these like rough gestures of how they would stand and walk and run and drink and eat and sit. And then that leads to the evolution of the design of the character, right? So you have another experiment, but within each one of those experiments, as we talked about earlier, you're iterating, right? Think about it, like even in figure drawing classes, this is the one thing I have to say is really powerful about teaching online versus being in a classroom. And I've taught in classrooms most of my teaching career, but online you have a photo reference, right? Because you have a reference, the model's not going to move. They can stay there and you can just keep iterating and iterating. Normally, when you learn how to draw in a classroom setting, the model takes a pose and you draw him or her. And then the model takes another pose and you draw him or her, and so on, right? So what happens is you do only get one shot, right? It's like the model takes a pose, you take a shot at it. Now, if we step out of that and say, well, there's a bigger experiment going on there, there is. The iteration is you're getting lots of different poses, right? But quite honestly, I think it might take a little longer to learn that way because you never really got to understand the first one and like get some real information out of it to move on to the next one. You see, so it's a little dichotomy of what's the learning in each situation. On drawingforce.com specifically, all of the force instructors, including myself, across standard, premium and mentorship session, we advocate for iterate, right? Do it over and over, try to get it right. And we're helping on the forum or again in premium or mentorship and talking about, okay, look, in number 7, you did this, and number 3, you did this, and so on, right? And we've only been doing this, by the way, for the last 2 or 3 years now. It's not like I even taught like this in my long past of teaching, right? Like we only started this a couple of years ago. And I've been then trying to bring it out to workshops. But I have to say, when we did it, I can very honestly and sincerely say that I saw a vast improvement with just like how fast students were starting to learn,
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I can't express how much freedom that gives you, how much creative freedom, because instead of being burdened by, oh, I have to get it right in the first try, all of a sudden you free up all this mental power to just experiment, So yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. And as you can see, it applies across all kinds of drawing. It's a way of thinking, whether you're drawing the figure, animals, or doing character design, working in a studio, this process, then this way of thinking really will free you up and allow you to be more effective.
Yeah, just to close that up, you're right. This is something that doesn't even have to be drawing, right?
Yeah,
it could be anything. Exactly. As long as it's not causing you danger or someone else danger, then experimenting is great, right? Like you should experiment. It's like, how do you find your favorite ketchup? Right? Like go experiment. You never know, the one that you like maybe isn't your favorite, right? Maybe you should, purposely go out and buy 5 one week and just try them out, right? It'll end up being worth it. You'll have a lifetime of happiness with the new ketchup that you've never tried, right? So, go out there and I think experimenting is exciting. You know, it's interesting, exciting, keeps life exciting, you know.
It is. All right. So
All
now
right,
we are
thank
going
you.
to Diego.
Yep.
Yep, time for me. Okay, let's make it happen. I have a lot to talk today, so let's make it quick and share my screen. Here we go. I hope everyone can see this. We're going to talk today about movies. Not really, but yeah. Uh, well, I have some drawings here and the cover of a movie there. I hope everyone have seen this movie. If not, spoiler alert. So the first writing there, it's learning takes time. And that's really important to understand, because if we think we're going to learn something fast, quick, and in 2 minutes, that's not going to happen. I can really sign a contract about this. You will not learn something fast, quick, or in 2 minutes. I right there compare, and let's think about this. Imagine you want to learn to play an instrument, any instrument you want, whatever, the guitar, drums, or the violin. Imagine you want to get a song, a complete song from beginning to end, just grabbing the instrument and start playing it. Okay, let me know which one of you can do that straight away. You will have to play it once, twice, 3 times, and maybe forever until you get the perfect, not only the perfect pitch in the song, but to communicate what you're trying to say with that song. So it's important to understand that drawing is not something people tend to go, oh, you have a gift of drawing. Now, there's no gift of drawing. We talk about this in previous Force Fridays. But what I want to get at is that you need to do things over and over and over again to understand everything. And you will never get everything understood, right? Because there's so many things you have to learn. Someone was writing in the chat about what my path, what should I do? Should I focus on one thing? Of course, you need every time you need to focus on one thing before you can jump to the next. If you try to look for everything at the same time, it's gonna overwhelm you. You won't be able to focus on something, and everything's going to be mixed up, and you're gonna get lost. So here's the third line: that give yourself permission to do bad drawings. And as Sonli was saying before, none of us, I can speak for myself, but I think everyone will agree on this, do a drawing and say, oh, this is a masterpiece, the first drawing we did. And it's, you do one drawing, and here are drawings below. This one, for example, this is a 1 minute pose. So do you think this is a piece of art? No, there are a lot of things that could be fixed. For example, look at this foot here. What is that? Is that a foot? No, it's not. Look, compared to the other one, this is more beautiful to watch. It has a lot more rhythm. But, well, time is over. So the next time I draw this pose, I'm going to understand that this foot is not really understood for me. So how that foot works. So I'll be thinking about that. And there are many things I solve in this drawing, but there are many others I didn't. So the next time I will focus on another thing and bringing what Mike says, working with reference from photo reference, that's going to help you do that, right? Because this was a specifically 1 minute pose with a live model. So after that minute, the model moved to another pose. So that pose is over. Goodbye. No more seeing it. But on a photo, you can take another stab at it, and keep going until you get the whole picture, right? And you understand the whole pose. So now it comes the time to talk about this movie. The Sixth Sense is a movie. I really love this movie. I watch it a lot of times. And when you watch a movie, more than once, you start to find things that you wasn't aware at all when you watch that movie. And this movie specifically, the ending, so a spoiler alert again. So if you didn't watch the movie, just mute for a second and then you keep hearing it. At the end, the protagonist of this movie, we know that he's dead. So he wasn't there at all during the whole movie. He was just like a ghost, right? And once you get that knowledge of the story, if you watch the movie all over again, you'll find a lot of little things, a lot of details that are really great told on the movie. That you say, oh, that's amazing. So that is why the door didn't close, because nobody was there to close it, or many things like that. If you watch the movie, you'll see the many moments in the movie that you lose because you didn't know that little thing. So watch the big picture. We need to understand everything. So there's something I like to say to the student is suffer the whole pose. So go from feet to head, every single, draw the hands, draw the feet, draw the legs, draw the torso, draw the pelvis, draw the arms, draw the neck, draw everything you can draw at this time. Not in detail, but yes, what are they doing? What's the function of it all, and how everything works as a system. Because when you're moving a leg, everything else adapt to it. So when you watch the whole movie, you have a lot of things to get into understand, right? Better than if you just draw an arm and you say, okay, I will stop drawing an arm. This went wrong, so I start all over again. But you miss all the other parts. So watch the complete pose and then go again at it. Take another iteration and another and another and another. And every time you do that, you will find more things that you weren't aware. So for example, there's this other thing, you can't see what you don't know that is there. And that is completely true. I can burn my hands on that. And you trust me when I say that, because if you don't know something, think about any moment in your life when you realize that something was that way. I don't know. Let's take again the example of Sixth Sense of the movie. You didn't know that Bruce Willis was dead on that movie. Not Bruce Willis, not the actor, the character. So
that's the spoiler,
until you,
by the way. Now
yeah.
it's over.
Now it's over. Sorry.
Sixth Sense.
So the moment you realize that he was dead, then everything changes. You will never watch that movie again like you did the first time. You know, I'm a magician, and I love doing magic. And every time somebody asks you, how'd you do that? If I tell you how I did that, you will lose the illusion. You will lose that illusion. And as artists, as magicians or musicians or drawers or draftsmen or whatever you're going to do, you need to be able to see the backstage, to work on a pose, to work on a drawing, to work on a piece of art, to be able to tell and to create that illusion that people see after. Like Swen Lee said before, you maybe see this drawing from Disney and say how this artist is able to draw this. Shut up. This artist is not able to do this at one shot. He has been learning and training for years to be able to do that. Same thing as a magician. A magician doesn't grab a deck of cards and magically everything works like that. It needs to practice to understand and how to speak and how to tell the audience something. So as an artist, be aware of that. If you want to be an artist, if you want to be a draftsman, it's gonna take time. So don't think that you're gonna grab a pencil, and that pencil, because that brand of pencils creates beautiful drawings. No, it's not the pencil. So it's time. It's time you sit down and iterate. And here we are talking about different things for you to understand that iteration, it's in everywhere. Everything you want to learn, you will have to iterate. So see the whole concept to understand the details. And once again, we come to the fact that when you see the big picture, you are able to see details after that. So that is why we said, don't go straight to details, because details takes you from the big picture. And if you focus on just one detail, you lose everything else. So once again, back to the movie. If you just focus on, oh yeah, Bruce Willis is dead, so sad. No, that's not the point. The point is not that Bruce Willis is dead, so sad. It's how the director or the writer of the movie creates a lot of things around that concept to make you at the end feel that amazed, that oh, look, he was there and I didn't realize until the end. So I will watch it again and try to find what moments I was able to figure that out before. And you'll see that it's really hard to figure it out without knowing it. So you can't see what you don't know that is there. So if you don't know that Bruce Willis was dead, you won't be able to see it through the movie the first time you watch it. So this applies to drawing. So the first drawing, I want to talk about the first drawing you see here in blue, and the last one. The last one is, if you didn't watch a previous edition of First Friday, I went 2 times over that pose, and finally I add color and all that. So that is not my first drawing, of course. And the first drawing, the one in blue, is a light drawing. I was standing, that drawing is my size. I was standing there with all the lights off and grabbing a blue laser, and I left the camera with a long exposure time, and I just drew that. And it's really hard to draw without seeing what you're drawing, because I was just moving a light. I wasn't seeing that. That looks great here, and it would be amazing. It's like this. I don't know. Do you know, Mike, how it's called? This software. There's a video of Glenn King drawing in 3D.
Yeah, there's like VR software, right? Where I've done that actually too. I've worn that VR set and done that drawing also, where you're drawing in 3-dimensional space with a brush, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So this is very similar, but imagine that you're doing this without a helmet. Yeah. So you're not seeing anything. You're just drawing on the air. And after that, the camera said, and then you go to see the picture, and what's there? Oh, that's good. And that's really the key to this is, if you understand what you're drawing and you have the whole picture in your head, you'll be able to draw it without seeing it. So, because you know that exists. If you don't know, you cannot see it. But if you know, you can see it without seeing it. Wow, that was philosophical. But
yeah, I'd like to add, I'm sure all of you at one point or another in your lives has had to do something twice. It could be like taking a class, right? Or maybe you're learning how to surf or skydive. Like, you do this thing, and the first time you go through a class, everything is brand new. So you're in like a sense of shock and awe the whole time to get through it. And then when you go through it the second time, because you've gone through the whole process, you understand the whole thing. You have the opportunity not to be shell-shocked either, right? You can actually like take a step back, go through the steps of the class, understand it more holistically, because you know what the end is. Like with film, the challenge is it's long. It's an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours long sometimes, right? So it's a longer chunk of time that you have to sit and get from beginning to end. And then if you are a film buff or interested enough in learning about film, yes, then you go back, right? And you go, okay, now that I know what the big picture, no pun intended, right? But what the big picture is about, now I can see why they did what they did at the beginning, right? Like they're prepping you the whole time throughout the film to get you to this ending. What's awesome about the figure drawing work we're doing, you know, that drawing to understand the big picture might take you 2 minutes or 30 seconds, right? So talking about iterating fast, right? There's your opportunity. Those of you that have Disney Plus, by the way, there's an awesome thing on there called The Gallery. They've been talking about Mandalorian. And Kathleen Kennedy, who's maybe some of you know her name, but she's probably the world's most eminent producer at this point. She talks about exactly this subject. She talks about how, you know, as a good film team as well, you need to iterate early, right? Make all your mistakes early, because later is when the cost really goes through the roof, right? You've got all the actors on set, you've got the gaffers and like hundreds of people on a set at one time, right? So you want to, and it's not only because of the financial part, but ironically, it works out better that way too. You bring in the creative core at the beginning. That's where you do your iteration. You try to, through the iteration, get as close as possible as to what the film's going to look like, because shooting is where it's really expensive. So now on something like Mandalorian, they already knew exactly what an episode was going to look like, what its tone was like, what it was going to feel like. So when they go shoot, they're there to shoot. You know, like that's the job of that time period on the set. And I was like, damn, there it is again, right? Like here's one of the world's topmost, if not the topmost producer on the planet, talking about iteration, fail early, fail fast at the very beginning. I've seen it in games as well for the more successful producers. I've seen it in advertising. It goes across everything. So it's the same mindset. It's just all of us today are trying to train you guys and to get into this mindset. You know, it's just prolific as to how it not only teaches you faster, it gets you to success, you know, more quickly. So
Yeah, and just to close this, the whole phrase that is going to fill your head now, and you need to keep it inside, is enjoy the process, because it doesn't matter the end result. If you enjoy the process, you'll get to a beautiful end result that is gonna fulfill your soul. Let me get super philosophical right now, because you work for it, and there's nothing better than to work on something for a long period of time and finally get to a place when you say, oh, this was what I was trying to get. And after that, you will find another challenges and keep going. And every time you start learning something else, uh, enjoy the process. Look at this as a puzzle. How to solve a puzzle. I love solving puzzle also. So the moment you start solving a puzzle and doesn't work, you don't throw it against the wall, because that's not the idea of a game. You need to play. Watch football players. I can be all day talking about this, but you watch football players. They don't play just one match. Oh no, we lost. That there's no more. Our team will not play anymore. No, they play again and they lose and they will win and they will lose and they will win. So enjoy the process and have fun learning what you want to learn. So that's all, Ritunjay. That's your moment. Thank you guys for being here.
thanks, Diego.
Okay. So can you, yeah, let me share my screen. Hello guys, how are you? Thanks for joining in. Share my screen. Yes. Hope you can see my screen here and hear me properly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, so everyone, today my job is to, unify all of the things, as other instructors said, and show you like visually like the fun part of iterating, and show you some concepts that how we can manage all these things. Because some of you, like some of the people in the chat says that yeah, it's like 15 or 10-second drawing or a 1 minute drawing. It's like so fast. I'm gonna show you like how fun it is, okay, and how we can pull off like most out of it. So, anyways, um, here's my post for today. It's from drawingpost.com model pack, right? So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna do it purposely wrong. Okay, why I'm gonna do it purposely wrong? Because I want to show that iteration is like like Mike says, it's like experimentation and find your own sweet spot. Okay, So yeah, let's see this pose. I choose this pose particularly because I shouldn't like make a lot of mistakes in this. So what do you think? You can put in chat. Like my question to you would be, what's the first thing or the template of the torso you'd go for? Okay. So yeah, let me do it. Hmm. So people says, most of people says it's a C, because they see that squash in the torso. So I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna do it purposely wrong today. Okay. So yeah, let's go for the C. Yeah, let's go for the C. So something like this. You know. Yeah, it seems good. That yeah, it's like squashing so much in the abdomen area. And stretching his back from the other side, but sometimes it's in exceptional cases, and this pose is one of it. So yeah, let's first figure this out one. So yeah, if you think that this is a C, let me see. And I started with this pose. When I get inside, I try this pose with myself and see, like, yeah, there's a like force in there. So yeah, let's go for it and see let's what comes up in next iterations. By the way, I always draw bigger, so I'm gonna have to constantly resize it. Anyways, let's see. So this arm goes like this, and for example, I see outside movement in that. So yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. And outside, sorry, yeah, outside thigh, inside knee, and outside calf movement. So here goes the outside calf, and that's the foot, but sword leg foot. And for example, this you think would be front to back, okay? So here's my foot again. And now here's my head, simple head. So yeah, this is my first iteration. So since I'm like, revving this up and trying to explain you, I'm taking a little bit longer, but I would be a little bit shorter in time if I don't explain it. So let's say this would be my 1 minute, right? 1 minute. I'm gonna do another iteration now. So let's see. I tried a C torso in the first iteration. Let's get to an S torso. So now I see what? Now I see this really really important iteration in that. I mean important push in that abdomen area, that curve. So I think let's try another template. So again, let's do this. So let's do this. Let's me come from the back and go to the abdomen area now, right? So revving up, revving. But by the way, this pose is really like foreshortened. So yeah. Uh, and as like it has always been there, that force doesn't exist on the bicep side, okay? Because that is more of a straight, uh, more less dominant than the tricep area. So tricep area, the elbow, and the lower forearm is always where the force is. Okay, so let's try that. And yeah, let's get this. And a really really simple head here. Again, I did it big enough. So since what my main goal is in iteration process is to try different things, in every iteration. That is what my experimentation is, and that is what giving me, taking me to success. Oh, that was like, yeah, if I do like a C in the first torso, I miss this really important moment in there. Look, if doing a C, that would capture the squash in there, but that moment in the abdomen area, that area down the belly button is really really important in this pose. Seems like, yeah. So C doesn't give me that.
If you don't mind, Mrityunjay, just because of what I know, some of the conversations have been in the thread.
Yeah.
It's what Mrityunjay is doing. What helps here again is the learning happens through the doing, right? So sometimes you might look at the model and just say, oh, well, I think it's a C or an S torso. Well, you don't really know until you do it. There's plenty of times students come in with photographs of models in the mentorship sessions or premium, and I'm like, I'm not sure what that is. I need to draw it. So I'll actually sit and draw for them and say, oh, I see. If I do this, it's functioning this way. If I do it with this other type of torso, it's doing this way. So it gives me more insight. right? It gives me more insight to getting the right answer than just purely looking, And I
Yes.
think our culture nowadays thinks when you watch something, you learn it. Some cases that's true. I might watch a documentary on, I don't know, on how glasses are made, right? Whatever. I could learn from that, but if the learning you're after is a physical action like drawing, right? In the end, drawing is this physical action of line on paper or on the screen. You're not going to learn it unless you do it, right? And through the doing, you figure out solutions.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Cool idea.
Mhm.
So yes, continuing my these iterations, now I tried some different things here, moving into NS and see like, yeah, how I can bring more feeling to it. So something like that. So yeah, here goes my another iteration. You can see like almost it's like better than the first one, right? So again, like let's say it's like 2 minutes. So yes, here some of concepts came in that it's like time related, that in short period of time you're experimenting more, failing quicker. And yeah,
I think he froze.
Yep. I said, what happened? I'm okay.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
take
yeah.
Jay
That
is
problem
now
is
is
the
is
connection,
having
right?
a cold evening there, so he got frozen right now. I'm sure he'll be right back. We
I'll,
can
I'll take
we
over.
can keep talking about Mike. Can you take it?
Yeah. So let's see how are we doing on time. We have a few more minutes left. I think let's say, let's start closing this up. The thing that we want you guys to be aware of today is that iteration is the way to get to a fast answer, right? You've seen across Swenley talking about the confidence that it helps give you, right? So you end up gaining more confidence through the act of knowing, oh my God, my first drawing doesn't have to be the best one or the right one, right? In short, like practice, right? Practice is what creates skill. And I believe that skill is not taught through stress of perfection early on. Skill is learned through you enjoying, as Diego said, enjoying the process, being creative and playful and curious while you're working. Confidence huge, um, and being in that kind of mindset through practice and experience is what actually makes you better. I think it was you, Diego, also that mentioned something about, oh, like in magic, right? A magician isn't born amazing. Like they put in years and thousands of hours to pull off an illusion. And in a way, we could take that as a metaphor to drawing. When you go and look at some of your favorite artists out there, especially if you're watching a video of them drawing, it looks like magic, right? It really does. It's like it looks so easy and really simple, and they're just drawing on the screen, and the drawing shows up, right? There's a bunch of artists out there who draw sort of more immediately, right? Like they're not using what I call the soft touch approach. Um, they'll draw something like this here. So let's say I'm drawing a head, right? And they'll just draw, right? It's like, oh, well, here's a guy's face, right? And I'm
oh,
just like
very
drawing the face like this, right? Like that, it looks like it's nothing to do this, right? Like I'm just drawing a face. But what you don't know is behind that magic, right, is years and years of drawing experience. Okay. So, like what is behind that? Here, I'll show you really fast. So you see somebody do this, but this person has learned, well, what have they learned? They learned how to control their line. They've learned perspective. They've learned anatomy, right? Just to give you some right off the top. So 3 things are going on here. And they've learned how to see. They must have learned over time how to see well. They've also learned how to take that seeing and draw from imagination, right? You know, and that's because all these things up here that they've gone through lead to having the ability to do this, right? So it's like, you know, where's the perspective in this? Well, when I started this, the moment I put even this first line down, I already knew I'm going to put this guy's face on a certain perspective, right? So all these things are invisible in there, right? So keep in mind, if it's a magician or if it's an artist, which is in a sense a magician, because we're creating this illusion of not only good drawing happening quickly, but that we're creating three-dimensional space, or we're trying to draw the world around us with force and so on. It's years of practice that get us there. And again, the fastest way to get through that practice, folks, is for you guys to iterate. Fail early, fail fast. Always try to think about the big picture, right? In prior videos, we talked a lot about hierarchy. Hierarchy on the body. If you're learning how to draw the figure, hierarchy is understanding function, which comes from balance and other doings that the body can do, and understanding rhythm in the figure. That was our metaphor today to film, right? Doing things more and over again gives you deeper and deeper understanding of it. So you get better and better at it. And then as Mrityunjay closed out today, you know, that was a sense of the experimentation, right? That you're able to experiment. You can even get things wrong on purpose, by the way. In drawing, again, nobody's going to get hurt. Draw it wrong, right? Draw it wrong. If you do it wrong, you'll understand why right is right, which is, I would say, is where we're going to close today. So,
You know, Mike, let me add one thing. You said nobody's going to get hurt.
yeah.
And yes, there's one thing that is going to get hurt, and it's your ego.
Yeah.
And you have to let that go, right?
Right.
You have to let that go. Hurt your ego. It doesn't matter. You know, it will let you learn more.
Yeah, man, that darn ego, it's what stops us from doing everything, right? It's what stops people from getting on stage. Maybe you want to be a stand-up comedian, right? It's like typically the thing that stops people is they're just terrified of getting up there and being judged, right? Instead of just having a good time. Well, same thing happens with drawing. You know, you're scared that you're going to fail, or scared you're going to get judged by someone, or maybe you're too harsh on judging yourself, right? You just got to have fun doing it. And like I said, fail, you know, fail a lot, fail fast, you know, go crash and burn as often as possible. That's how you get to be great at something.
Yeah,
all right.
One more thing.
Please.
Yeah. Sorry, my internet connection is crappy today, so just like thrown out in the middle. But yes, as people, as I was saying that, you know, before closing, that just, you know, just experiment more. You know, you can do it purposely wrong. You know, that find out what's right, right? And yeah, failure, it has its own enjoyment, right? So yeah, and I can close it.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Mrityunjay. All right, guys, thanks for coming to today's Force Friday. Next week, we'll be here again with a lesson. And then the following week, we're going to do a full-hour critique. So, you know, keep sending in the work to the Dropbox for the critique sessions. Like I said, we're not going to do it next week. It'll be the week after. And probably over this weekend at some point, you will see an invitation. If you subscribe, right? Where is my subscribe button? Here we go. You know, subscribe and click on the bell. That will notify you when something new is coming on this YouTube channel. I'm going to be setting up the first artist interview coming out. Right now, we're working on the second. And by the way, I'm already going to be interviewing our third artist tomorrow. So we're starting to set up our queue for artist interviews. So please subscribe, hit the bell, and we will see you for Force Friday, obviously, next Friday. All right. So take care, everyone. Thanks again. And thank you,
See you guys.
Yeah, thanks.
Have a nice weekend.
Everyone.
Thanks for teaching with us today, too, guys. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Yeah, you're welcome. Bye-bye.